The Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Super Conference is coming to Dallas, Texas, February 16, 17, and 18 in 2018. If you know of a better way to get the latest insider knowledge about crypto, to hear directly from the top minds in this field, to interact personally with 800 fellow crypto lovers, hodlers, investors, miners, traders, developers, and founders, then I'd like to hear about it. If you don't, then you don't want to miss out. Register today for the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Super Conference. Go to bitcoinsuperconference.com and register today as a super early bird to get the lowest rates on tickets and hotel rooms. That's bitcoinsuperconference.com.
Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost Here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with Future Tech Podcast. I'm talking to a community moderator called Customminer. He's a moderator for the Gridcoin community, and the website is gridcoin.us. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, thank you. And yourself?
Good. Yeah, thanks for taking the time. I know you're calling in from overseas. So tell me, first for people that don't know, tell me about Gridcoin. What's the purpose of it and how does it work?
Yeah, sure. So Gridcoin, it's an open source cryptocurrency, similar to Bitcoin. It securely rewards volunteer computing performed upon the BOINC platform in a decentralized manner on top of proof of stake rather than on top of proof of work, so it's less compute intensive. It doesn't use electricity to run our network, as much as Bitcoin, I mean. So what is BOINC? It's an open source volunteer computing grid which combines the processing power of hundreds of thousands of individual users for the purposes of scientific research. So it's free. It's been in production state for the last 10 years, and there's we've got about 27 projects whitelisted at the moment. They range from trying to cure cancer, AIDS, Ebola, to mapping the Milky Way, cracking encryption, or searching for extraterrestrial life through SETI. If you are a researcher and you've not got enough any funding for computing power, you can create a BOINC project quite easily and distribute your work through the BOINC platform. And if you kind of meet the minimum criteria, the Gridcoin network can potentially reward your volunteers for you, so that you can kind of have a guaranteed level of computation continuously. And that way you can kind of bypass the need to reach out for funding in the first place, which a lot of people, it's a large hurdle for them. You can't get the funding for your research, so you can't go ahead with it, unfortunately, in this day and age.
So what are some of the criteria that would make a successful project on Gridcoin? What's required?
Well, to be honest, the criteria is pretty low to get a BOINC project whitelisted in the Gridcoin network. It's basically, if you've got the minimum security set up, you've got SSL, HTTPS enabled, that's a bare minimum that you have to have. Run some tests beforehand, have a guaranteed level of work for our users. So say we direct a few thousand users to your BOINC project, you can continuously supply us work for our users to crunch, or will you run out in a couple of days? If you can provide us continuous work, then we could probably work with you.
Okay. What are some of the projects you see that are more successful than others that people really are keen to? I'm sure it's not just the requirements, but it's I guess the interest in the project and what speaks to people. So which ones have you seen are the most successful?
Well, the Gridcoin network rewards each project equally. So one project with 1,000 workers and one with 10 workers, they both get the same amount of Gridcoin. But in terms of the success of the individual projects, probably the most well-known projects are SETI at Home, which is where BOINC originated from. They search for extraterrestrial life using hundreds of thousands of computers. There's World Community Grid, which is IBM based. They try and detect cures for AIDS, for childhood cancer, for Ebola, malaria, these sort of things. There are a lot of projects out there which are smaller and they've just got, enthusiast BOINC users joining them, like mathematics-based things that aren't, trying to solve disease or find, signs of extraterrestrial or whatever. But hopefully with, the Gridcoin network treating them equally, they get the extra computing power. So it's kind of like drawing users away from the very popular projects towards the lesser known ones.
So, do you think that it makes sense for the Gridcoin community to reward each project equally? I mean, wouldn't some projects have more importance than others?
This is a very, difficult area of discussion because a lot of people are, they really like the idea that every project is rewarded equally. So you've got your small projects which, aren't backed by IBM being able to get a serious amount of computing power towards them, whereas if we were to go towards a more commercial angle, potentially that would be more beneficial for Gridcoin's economics. But, we may see projects which don't have enough funding receive less computing power. I mean, there is a balance. I mean, like we could potentially, set aside a small portion of the, BOINC Gridcoin rewards and divvy them out to projects that have, say, spent money or destroyed money in order to get this extra bonus. Potentially, I've actually created some proposals on that in the past. You get a lot of people that speak out against that. They like it being equal, despite it potentially maybe being better economically for the network to have a small slither assigned for a commercial angle. I mean, we do have competitors out there like Golem, Stonum, IEX, which do go directly towards the commercial, target audience, and they are valued greater than Gridcoin, but they don't reward the users that crunch the same projects we do.
Do you have projects that don't use all the power allocated to them and they have excess that they can give back to the grid, or does that never happen?
That doesn't happen. It's basically proportional distribution. So say there's only 5 people on one project and they crunch all of the work units available for, say, that week. They'll get that week's worth of Gridcoin rewards, that are available to that one project. If you crunch more on one project, you don't suddenly start eating into other projects' rewards. It's all kind of walled off. However, if they don't have enough work available, people can say it's unfair that one person crunched all of the work and is now getting all the rewards. So that's where, potentially being removed from the whitelist comes into play. If you don't have enough work, distribution of Gridcoin can become unfair.
How much computing power does a project get? Are you able to quantify it in some way?
It's actually quite difficult to quantify this because the BOINC credit score, this recent average credit, used to originally represent, flops, which is a unit of computation power, but it's kind of broken away from that. Each project has their own implementation of the credit system. So say one project rewards 1,000 points and another project rewards 10 points. That doesn't necessarily mean that one project's done, more computation than the other. It just means that they've got a different setting. So you can take there are public host records, host.xml outputs that you can, analyze and see, okay, this user is managing to get a large amount of computing, a large score for this project. What computing equipment does he have? Oh, you can see what graphics card he's got, what CPU he's got and stuff. So you can deduce from that the computing power to a degree. I mean, you could go through that, host file dump and figure out yourself what computing power is available to them. But, the volunteers are very kind of fluid. They come and go. People turn off their PCs, PCs break. They're not always online. Some people are enthusiasts who have their computers crunching 24/7, but, 1 week they could have a serious amount of computing power. The next week it could dip and they'd have less,
Okay. What is there any incentive for being online more often than not? If I want to just contribute my computing power as an individual and I don't have a project, how does Gridcoin work for me? How is it different?
If you've got computing power, you can just select several projects that are best suited for your computing hardware. So, if you've got an AMD graphics card, you can select some of the most compatible projects and kind of maximize your earnings that way. If you're not fussed about the income, you can pick the project that suits your interest the most, like you're interested in science, you're interested in mathematics, you can go that route and slowly pick up the earnings. You might not be focused with profitability that way. but rather on the science of it, I guess.
Yeah, what can if I contribute my computing power, what are the steps I have to do? I somehow set it up in Gridcoin to do that, and then I have to leave my computer on and processes run in the background, or how does it work?
Yeah, so you download the BOINC client. It's just a bit of software. It doesn't take much time to set up. But then you have to, when you run it, you get like a window that pops up. It kind of shows you the list of projects that are available. You select, you kind of Google each one, or, you click on the links for them, figure out which ones you're interested in, and you can just register within the client for each one. Once you've done that, you join Team Gridcoin for each project, and, well, once you've registered, it'll start crunching the work that the project is distributing almost immediately. So if you've got the BOINC client open and your computer is idle, you're not using it at that time, then it will just start crunching nonstop. Yeah. With regards to earning Gridcoin, you can earn Gridcoin through a pool, which means you wouldn't have to run the Gridcoin client and try and stake a block in order to get your rewards. So it's a bit easier and faster to start up. You don't have to get starting capital, whereas you can go down the route of solo staking. So you can help secure the network by creating a block with the coins that you have in your balance. It's not risky using staking, but when you do create a block through staking, you get your BOINC rewards on top. And that is the method of decentralized rewards distribution. Yeah.
What's the approximate, so if people get Gridcoin as a reward, do they then convert it to fiat, or what do people do when they get their reward?
Yeah, I mean, the Gridcoin can be traded on several centralized exchanges, as well as on a couple of decentralized exchanges for many different types of cryptocurrency. So you can trade it directly to fiat on the BitShares network, as well as on cryptocurrency exchange. But primarily, the most liquid trading pairs are directly to Bitcoin, and then from Bitcoin, you can trade that to any currency or other cryptocurrency you're interested in. So you don't necessarily have to hold Gridcoin forever. If you get it, you can just sell it immediately if you need to worry about your electricity bills.
Okay. And again, what's the ballpark approximate reward? How many Gridcoin per day or month or project?
Per day, we issue approximately 50,000 Gridcoin, and that is split across each whitelisted project. So the more projects that are whitelisted, the less is distributed to each individual project. So, it's 50,000 divided by, I think it's 27 at the moment. So it's just under 2,000 Gridcoin per project per day. And then within each project, you could be talking about hundreds to thousands of users that being distributed to.
Okay. Well, very good. Do you have a threshold below which a project, if it doesn't get enough volunteers, that it can't run anymore and it falls out of the running?
I mean, that hasn't really been a problem in the past. Actually, I tell you what, there have been a couple projects like I think WEP M+2 or something along those lines. It had very specific compatibility, so it was only like Windows 32-bit and an old operating system. That might be changed now, but at the time, it was a case that only like 5 or 10 people were able to actually run the computing work units on that project. So it was kind of deemed unfair. But generally, if they're distributing work units for a variety of computers, at least for Linux, then it will be it will receive workers because since each project is given Gridcoin equally, so it's split equally. There's an opportunity to jump on a project that doesn't have a lot of volunteers. If you're the only person crunching that project, then you're going to get 100% of the rewards for that project, which in perspective isn't fair compared to someone that's competing with like 3,000 plus people on SETI at home, but it's just the way our system works at the moment.
Like for SETI at home, do you have any insight? Does the project feel like it has enough computing power? I'm sure it never feels like it has enough, but why wouldn't, since it's limited to a certain amount, have people created derivative SETI at home projects to try to grab more computing power, or do they have like a unique status in the community where they could apply for more power?
I'm not too sure, to be honest. I think an overall trend with BOINC is that the available volunteers is slowly decreasing over time. Whether that's due to just simply losing interest, or computers getting thrown out or whatever, or people getting into it a while ago than forgetting about it at a later time. That's certainly a concern, but there's the kind of the offset of computers are getting more powerful, so if there's less people crunching the project, it might make up for the fact that a GPU's increased like 10 times in power in the last 3 years or something like that. So I think it is a bit of a balancing act. I think they do utilize their own private clusters as well. Several projects do that at least.
Okay. And your role is, you said you're a moderator amongst the Telegram and the Slack and the other channels. Is that right?
Yeah, that's kind of one of my main things, helping out with the administration and moderation to a degree. At the same time, I do some development. I'm not a core developer. I'm more, working on, I've ported a couple libraries. I've created Bash and Haskell scripts for Gridcoin. I've created a proposal for improving the proof of BOINC account ownership through public key cryptography. That's currently a pull request I've got up on the BOINC repo. So that's in terms of how to prove that you own that BOINC account so that someone else doesn't try and steal your rewards, from you, which is a theoretical threat, really. Outside that, the other things I do are I organized the Gridcoin community hangouts for the last year. So there's been 40 so far, and they're continuing on a fortnightly basis. They last from an hour to 4 hours. You can check them out on SoundCloud or YouTube if you want to listen to us drone on about Gridcoin, and I represent Gridcoin occasionally on the Beyond Bitcoin hangouts.
Okay. What kind of interesting things do you see because you're a moderator and you see what's going on in all the channels? Good or bad, what's your experience like doing that?
Well, it's certainly quite tough moderating, a decentralized network. I mean, you could ban someone and then they just switch to a different VPN and jump back in. With a decentralized network, it's very different from your normal working environment. If you're at a job and someone's being abusive, then they can get you fired. They don't get back in the building. But with a cryptocurrency network, it's just as simple as changing your IP and getting maybe a new phone number if you get banned off Telegram. I mean, we haven't had too much problems. In the early days, when Gridcoin was a smaller group, we did butt heads a lot more, just purely because we're talking to each other and driving each other insane. But now there's thousands of users. It's only occasionally we may have trolls or people getting into fights, and we have to jump in and decide as a group of moderators, all right, how are we going to approach this? Because a lot of people, they don't like any form of of moderation. They see it as kind of like a breach of free speech, and it's quite a difficult balance. You have to be very laid back at the same time as taking threats seriously or whatever.
Are there any threats or
is that our community is global, so people come from every time zone. That means that someone would be down for their breakfast, another person's been drinking and still are at 3 a.m. or something, or people come from different cultures or different languages and misinterpret one another, and it just spirals. That's something you have to account for. To try and generally diffuse situations sometimes is kind of stressful, but it's something that needs to happen.
What kind of good things or interesting things do you see because you do the moderation? Let's focus on the positive stuff. What do you see?
Yeah, I mean, in the last year or so, the Gridcoin community has really grown. So I've managed to oversee the Slack channel become a lot more productive. It's really cool. In the past it was just the one IRC channel, and it was all very kind of spammy. And now you get to see people coming in, joining, and getting to network with people. It's pretty good. And also, being kind of one of the first contacts for outside companies is pretty interesting. It's pretty fun.
Okay. And where do you see the community going right now? Is it what's it shaping up to turn into over the next 6 months or a year? What do you see happening?
Well, hopefully the plan is that if we can scale appropriately, we will be able to remove the mandatory Team Gridcoin requirement. So currently there's hundreds of thousands of active BOINC users crunching BOINC, and we're currently only rewarding less than 0.5% of the total active BOINC user base. Yeah, so if we can remove the mandatory team requirement, then hopefully we'll be able to be more of a neutral community entity rather than, so we're more of a BOINC cryptocurrency than just a Team Gridcoin-based BOINC cryptocurrency. That way more people will join our community and we'll get bigger. I mean, I can't envisage how we'll moderate a Slack channel of like 10,000 plus people, but that's like less than 1% of the active BOINC user base. It'll be an interesting challenge to say the least if that does occur.
How many are there now, approximately?
Currently, well, the thing is, our community is very split across many different platforms. Some people just do not like Telegram or Slack. They stick to IRC, and IRC doesn't retain users as well as, say, Slack or Telegram. So Telegram, I think we're between 400 or 500 users. Slack, about the same. We've got a long-standing cryptocurrency talk forum, which, has got tens of thousands of posts, and it's difficult to attribute how many Gridcoin users there are in there out from the entire forum, but it's quite a large forum. We've got thousands in of subscribers in the subreddit /r Gridcoin, and we've started to get quite a large Steemit presence on the hashtag Gridcoin. So check that out, post some good stuff, and we'll upvote you. Aside from that, there's also Discord, which is a little bit smaller. So generally the chats are like several hundred.
Yeah, I guess, from what I've seen, the 80-20 rule, most of the people tend to be in one or two channels. So for Gridcoin, where is the biggest, most active community part of it? Where is it? On Telegram, on Slack, where?
I'd say Slack and Telegram. Slack is where people are more productive. We've got set topics where we'll, work on web development or core development and stuff. That's a lot more productive. Telegram, there's always someone online and talking. Those are both the most productive and, busy places, followed by, IRCs and the forums and Reddit, Steemit.
Right. Okay. Well, so how do we encourage people to get involved in the Slack and Telegram? Where can they go to join them or to get invites?
If you go on the gridcoin.us website, there are direct links to Telegram, to Slack, Discord, everything. With Slack, we have a Heroku app for inviting people. So that way you don't need to have someone give you a personal invite. We did have problems with setting up our own dedicated invite link, but that's being, solved with this Heroku thing.
I guess I'll call you CM or Customminer. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it, and look forward to people checking out Gridcoin.
Cool. Thank you very much.
The Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Super Conference is coming to Dallas, Texas, February 16, 17, and 18 in 2018. If you know of a better way to get the latest insider knowledge about crypto, to hear directly from the top minds in this field, to interact personally with 800 fellow crypto lovers, hodlers, investors, miners, traders, developers, and founders, then I'd like to hear about it. If you don't, then you don't want to miss out. Register today for the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Super Conference. Go to bitcoinsuperconference.com and register today as a super early bird to get the lowest rates on tickets and hotel rooms. That's bitcoinsuperconference.com.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.